I think the relationship is excellent. I think that the ties are strong. Of course, there's always concern, particularly when you see the developments in Syria and developments in Iraq. But I think that Iraqi Kurdistan is one of the rare areas in the Middle East that there have been longstanding stable relationships and that people don't really lose sleep over in Washington. Well, first off, the Kurdistan region has to, commit itself to retaining as part of unitary Iraq. I mean, I know that there's been some discussion, some tension over that, but the bottom line is there's not a consensus in Washington to support um, full independence or succession from Iraq. The second is the ongoing security relationship between the Kurdish region and the United States, to include a welcoming presence of U.S. forces to continue to conduct counterterrorism operations in the region, and the partnership in counterterrorism operations is very much appreciated. And then finally, I think that to the extent that the Kurdish region can serve as a bulwark against Iranian expansionism, that's appreciated in Washington. Well, there's a couple things. So, if the Kurdish region were to leave Iraq, or if Quebec were to leave Canada, we're convinced that what you'd wind up with would be two extremely weak states that would be unable to sustain or defend themselves. And so then you have to ask yourself, okay, so who would benefit from that? And in your part of the world, the person who usually benefits from chaos is Iran. And given that Iran is committed to opposing the most security interests, your global security interests, save those of Iran, that is a bad outcome for the United States and for Kurdistan. Well, I think it'll be more important for our partners than it will be for the United States per se. I mean, right now, the United States has more oil than we can profitably extract at current prices. The real issue is, given the disruption of oil coming to Europe because of their reliance on Russia, foolish reliance in my estimation, and Putin's need for oil to fund his war, Iran's need for oil, the development of an alternative source that would allow countries like Turkey and Europe and points west, that's more important strategically to the United States. So, Iraqi oil from the Kurdish region or elsewhere is could be a very important part of that mix. Well, I think your viewers are very familiar with the long-term involvement of the United States in the Iraqi Kurdish region. I did not serve in Operation Provide Comfort, but I showed up at that unit about 6 months after it completed, and I was in the parachute battalion that was in Dahuk to prevent Saddam Hussein from coming in after the invasion of Kuwait. We've remained there as protectors and guardians of the Kurdish people against potential enemies. Those enemies have shifted. The Kurdish region obviously has prospered with the overthrow of Saddam Hussein. And I think that the relations between the region and the United States remain excellent. As a matter of fact, I think that the Kurdish region, the way it operates in Iraq, is now being shown to the Kurds in Syria as a model that they might wish to follow. So, I don't think any reasonable person can doubt that there's longstanding ties and relations there that are more than just the price of oil or strategic interest, from that. Well, I mean, the one thing that if you look over 20 years, the one place where the United States has had a forward presence in the region is the Kurdish region. So that from an American perspective, is extremely helpful. And, given the fact that we see, the rise of ISIS, so our initial response to counter ISIS came out of the Kurdish region, and ISIS is still out there. The support to the Kurdish forces who were fighting after the fall of Mosul. It's much easier to operate at a closer distance than at farther distance, and it's much easier to operate from established bases than it is from improvised bases. So I think that's really where the conversation starts when you talk about security in the Kurdish region. But at the end of the day, what we see is that sometimes in Iraq, there are parties that don't serve Iraqi interests. They serve Iranian interests. Some of them are armed and have pressured or called for for the removal of American training forces, training the federal forces in Iraq, that have threatened the government of Iraq, threatened the prime minister. We don't deal with that in the Kurdish region. And I think that is appreciated. Well, what we've seen is a federal arrangement with the Kurdish region within Iraq that suits Kurdish interests, suits Iraqi interests, suits American interests, suits regional interests. That's something that should be sustained and strengthened. And I think that the leadership shown in the Kurdish region serves the interests of all those parties. So by serving their own, it's very fortuitous that by serving their own interests, they're managed to serve the interests of the greater country of Iraq, as well as the region, and they're good partners to the United States. So we have a saying in the Army, keep on keeping on. And I think that this is a good news story, and one that I think that will land with favor all around the world, not just in the United States. Well, as I mentioned earlier, the Kurdish region in a unified Iraq, provides an example of stability. They've had stability that other parts of Iraq have not had. It shows the importance, particularly when you look at the spread of Daesh in 2014, where American and allied forces had left Iraq in 2011, except for the Kurdish region. And their relations there were able to build an effective military response that protected a lot of key areas and allowed for the defeat of Daesh really on the outskirts of Baghdad, and then the eventual rollback of it. That is an extreme example. I hope it'll never come to that again. But what it shows is the importance of geography. You can have airlift, you can have missiles, you can have airplanes. But at the end of the day, a lot of warfare is just geography, and it's very hard to overcome distance. Well, I have to specify, I don't speak for the United States, so these are my observations, and I was actually born a Canadian, so you might want to discount what I say accordingly. But my observations are that when you look at the differences, Kurdistan is only viable as part of a unitary Iraq. If you don't have a unitary Iraq that includes Kurdistan, what you'll basically have in 5 years are 3 Iranian provinces. They might be formally administered by Iran or informally administered, but they will be under the influence of Iran. What Kurdistan has shown is that by their partnership with the United States, they are able to maintain a level of security that allows for the development of business, that allows for the provision of services for their people, that allows for real development. And I think that that's a positive model that the rest of Iraq, which will remain in a unitary state with Kurdistan, needs to perhaps embrace more fully. Well, I don't think the United States is particularly concerned about the functioning of free markets, and doesn't insist that it be the sole investor in the Kurdish region. I think that we welcome, or the rest of Iraq, I think we welcome investment from all quarters, as long as it's true investment and not just conducted according to, say, bribery or corrupt practices, irregular payments, or that it's true investment and not seeking to, for example, create a debt diplomacy situation, like we've seen with Chinese developments of ports in Sri Lanka, where the investment becomes unsustainable, the debt becomes due, and then China seizes the ports. So I think that it doesn't need to be an exclusive relationship. And I think that if the Kurdish regional government creates a fair and transparent process for investment, investors will come. And I think that most countries in the world welcome that and welcome the opportunity to invest and reap the profits of investing. Well, I don't think there's a reevaluation. I think that this is constant. I mean, when you look at what you can invest in, what you can develop in the Kurdish region, that's one of the things that really jumps out at you. So I think that there is, that's obviously the most potential. It's just like if you go to Atlanta and want to invest in something, Coca-Cola leaps out because that's where it's from. So it's kind of the dominant industry. So I think that will continue. I think the market dictates that, not politics or anything that people decide in Washington. Well, I don't think that a government decision is needed to increase investment in the Kurdistan region. I mean, look, investors take their own money, risk their own money, and then hope to make profits off of it. When they see a country that is dangerous, when they see a country that is corrupt, where their profits can be taken or seized, when they see a country that is run by unreliable people or is at risk of invasion, they won't invest. So, if you create the conditions, the investors will come. That's just the way it is. And that doesn't really take a US government policy. That's the daily implementation of policies and rules of law throughout all of Iraq, to include the Kurdistan region. Well, as you correctly note, that the Trump administration is very business focused. So I think that as long as business conditions remain open, transparent, conducive, investors will come. And I would just say, to figure out where you're going in the future, look at the past. The American involvement in the security, investment, energy, infrastructure in the Kurdish region, go back decades. No other country has the level of support, the level of interest, to include putting our soldiers on the line.